Out front now, Democratic Senator Adam Schiff, and I appreciate your time, sir. So you saw Jay Clayton's multiple refusals to just come on and take this on point blank, which takes on new urgency in the context that we just laid out, right? Trump's giving a speech to the nation that he says is about free and fair elections. He has said multiple times just in recent weeks, that he's won the White House 3 times, that it's a rigged election, right? This is something that it is an obsession in terms of the frequency with which he is bringing it up. What do you think is happening here?
Well, this is a position where it is all the more important to be able to speak truth to power, to confront the president or members of Congress with unpleasant truths in order to protect the country. If Jay Clayton can't say out loud that Donald Trump lost the election and Joe Biden won the election, can we have any confidence then when push comes to shove, when we need the straight scoop about threats to our country, that he's going to level with us instead of merely singing by the president's song sheet? It also suggests that if the president wants the intelligence agencies to cook up something to justify voter interference in the midterm elections, that Jay Clayton doesn't have the backbone to stand up to him. That may be the most significant consequence because, of course, Tulsi Gabbard didn't have the backbone to stand up to the president. There she was in Fulton County, Georgia, where she has no business being during an FBI raid seizing ballots. So doesn't harbor well in terms of what Clayton is willing to do or not do if Trump tries to interfere once again in the next election.
So when he says, I'm not an election denier, and he starts to laugh, is there any part of you that sees that he's trying to signal to you, I'm not crazy, I get it, I know that this is all bunk, or you don't see it that way?
No, I think that's a fair reading. I think this is a way of saying, I'm not one of those crazy people that really believes this, but I'm going to dissemble in front of this committee because if I don't, Donald Trump's going to pull my nomination. So I'm willing to go along with this charade, and I think John Ossoff had it exactly right. It's humiliating. I'm sure it was humiliating for him, but he's willing to be humiliated, and this is the problem. Cabinet member after cabinet member are willing to debase themselves for Donald Trump, to push out his lies or to refuse to speak the truth. And again, if you can't do that on easy stuff like who won an election, how can we count on them to do it on difficult stuff?
So your committee, Senator, the Judiciary Committee, also held a confirmation hearing today for Trump's Attorney General pick. That's Todd Blanche. And you had a number of contentious back and forths with him today. I want to play some of that here for viewers who didn't see it.
How is that not a patent conflict of interest?
What you're saying happens to not be true. I did not do that. What you're talking about happened before I became the Deputy Attorney General.
So you support the release of Volume 2?
No, I don't, but I'm recused and had nothing to do with that case. Like, you can't accuse me of violating my ethical rules and then lie about what I did. I wasn't involved. You can't say it appears I was involved, but I said I wasn't.
Let me ask you about another one you have your name on.
The truth has to matter at some point.
Yeah, it does matter. We just don't hear much of it from you. What happened to the Todd Blanche of the Southern District of New York that could convert him into you, someone willing to say the president has both the right and the duty to prosecute his political enemies? I cannot imagine the Todd Blanche of the old days would have ever done that. What happened to you, Todd Blanche?
Blanche was adamant, though, Senator, that he is not a yes man for President Trump. Do you believe him at all?
No, I think, sadly, the entire record is to the contrary. He said yes to this slush fund. He said yes to this self-dealing IRS settlement that a judge just this week basically said was a fraudulent act of collusion and referred Todd Blanche to the Bar Association in New York to look at his ethics or lack of ethics. There's been nothing, it appears, that he's unwilling to do for the president. He even went to the length of telling the president he loves him at the podium at the Justice Department. And there you just saw him deny exactly what he said, which is he was asked about prosecuting the president's enemies. And he said, yeah, there are people out there the president has had disagreements with, and he has not only the right to go after them, but a duty to do so. Those were his words. And much as he tries to dissemble, he owns that. And of course, the Justice Department is acting upon that. No self-respecting prosecutor in his old office would bring a seashells case against James Comey or a case against my Senate colleagues for a video they made that Hegseth didn't like. It would be unthinkable. And yet, this is where Todd Blanche is today.
One question I have to ask you before you go on something you introduced. Now, you've introduced a new war powers resolution to try to stop the Iran war. We're learning tonight, though, Senator, that the president is receiving options on enlarging the military operation in Iran, the war. Do you think there's any way to stop him at this point?
There is every way to stop him if members of Congress vote to bring an end to this. We can defund these operations. We can pass these war powers resolutions with even greater bipartisan support, force him to veto it, or if necessary, overcome a veto. But yes, we have all the power that we need in Congress to stop this. What we don't have yet is sufficient bipartisan will to do it. But this appears to be going on without end. It appears to be a classic definition now, sadly, tragically, of a quagmire.
All right, Senator, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. And